thank you for that introduction, Kelly. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank Fresh Fields to organize and host this screening of Builder of the Silicon Dream. It is really, it has a real different feeling now that I'm looking at it, because last year we had quite a few screening, and somehow it's kind of profound watching this film right now, because it feels like it's such a different kind of atmosphere right now than last year when we're filming this, when we finished this film. So I don't know. I mean, I have a different feeling actually just watching this film right now. So with that said, Diana, you have anything you would like to say?
Well, thank you, Tony, and thank you, everyone. And thank you for the organizers for this wonderful film screening and nice theater. And when you are watching this film, and Dr. Darling Xu passed away last year, and Mr. David Zhang passed away too. I think this is going to be a history. I feel so honored that we're working together to record this history of the Chinese Americans' contributions to the society, to the United States, and to the whole world. This is very important because our next generations, when they watch this movie, and they will know what it was like many years ago, and how we come all the way to where we are right now. Especially nowadays, everything's changing so fast. So it's so valuable that we are able to have those stories be told in this way. Thank you.
I guess because usually we will have a moderator, but I'll just ask Diana this question, because just now, I was asked that how did we start the film? So I want to take it to Diana, because actually, she'll tell you the story.
Well, if you have any questions or any comments, then you can raise up your hands and we'll be happy to answer your questions. During the pandemic, actually, we started our nonprofit organization called Silicon Valley Community Media, focused on telling Asian American stories. At the grassroots level, we started the Asian American Story video contest. At the professional level, we work with Hollywood filmmaker Tony Xu to produce this film. Actually, before we found Tony, and we were struggling, and I interviewed quite a few filmmakers until we found Tony, and I feel like he's a person, he's the one, fully understand the culture, the history, and most importantly, he has a passion and love. So we have so many pioneers and leaders in Silicon Valley, but I feel like we start with those the people who first came here many years ago, paved the way. So we started with this 4 people story, and we're thinking to continue this story maybe in the future and feature other pioneers in different industries. So that's how we started this. So Tony, actually, when you first heard about this, I found you at a film screening, Epidemic, your film screening. I watched that film and I was so touched, and I thought, oh wow, this is great. So I went to find Tony. I said, well, we want to talk to you and see if you're interested in this. So when you first heard about our plan, how did you feel? Actually, at the very beginning, Tony wrote a long storyboard. But what you watch today is, I would say, totally different from the very beginning. It's like changing every step. For this film today, I would say that this is probably the 50s or even 70s version after the editing. So Tony, can you share with us this production process and how did you feel at the first beginning?
Yeah. So, well, Diana went to my previous film screening, and that film was also a documentary, and it's playing on PBS right now. It's called The Race Epidemic. The reason I started actually that film, the previous film, was because of during the pandemic, all the anti-Asian hate that was happening. So we made that film in during the pandemic and also after the pandemic, and it came out. It was quite powerful, and a lot of people were very touched. And Diana went to the screening, and she told me about the idea. So I started, writing about what I think I know about Silicon Valley, and what I think I know at the time. But after making this film for the last 3 years, I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley, and I spent a lot of time understanding what the previous generation, the pioneer, went through. So the film really evolved in a way that is more personal, and a lot of these information I would not have known unless I know what they went through. So I felt it was important to really try to make the film from their point of view, because you know they came here and they know and found out a lot of things that we would not know. So I wanted to focus on that part because that's history. And in the future, if we don't make these kind of films, all that will be lost. Because if you don't see if you don't see this film or you don't see their story, you probably wouldn't know a lot about what happened in the early days in 1960s, what the Asian Americans came here and what they contributed. You see the AI today, you see all these things, you just see the headline, but you don't see the people who actually kind of contribute and make this happen. And a lot of that was Asian Americans, and they didn't get that kind of knowledge. So that was one of the most important thing I wanted to do to make this film. So, yeah, thanks. Does anyone have any questions? We'll be happy to answer.
Yes, please.
Thank you so much for joining us. What a powerful film. As you said, it resonates with you perhaps differently sitting here today than even it might have 100+ days ago. Right? Are there any storylines that you were thinking about including but just didn't include because of time or lack of access? Maybe you could tell us a little bit about one or two of those.
Yeah, so the question was, are there any storylines that we wanted to include and we just didn't have time or access? Yes, a lot actually. After this, after interviewing them, I actually had contact with Steve Chen, who started YouTube, and some of the other founders, who started Twitch, Kevin, and a few others. And we wanted to include them in, but it's too hard to try to include everybody in one film. So that's why I think we would like to, continue to make these kind of film, but making into a series of films. The most important thing I think with this film is really not, it's not like a newsreel, like you try to include who's who, but actually really get into their personal life, personal story. That's the really important thing, that you understand their character and you understand the history and you understand what they've been through. So that was more focused in this film. But yeah, of course I would love to include many other people. And no, yeah, and also getting to them is, especially a lot of these guys like, Jensen Wong, everybody trying to get to him. So
Yeah, before the question, I just add one thing that the film you see is less than an hour, but the footage we recorded is over 70 hours. So you can imagine, it's really hard to choose the footage. So what's your question, please?
Thanks for making this film. It's great. I really love the emphasis on personal story. So one of the questions I have, maybe for both of you, can you tell us your own personal story about how you got, to what you're doing? Just give us some anecdotes about your own life.
Well, yeah. I mean, I came from Taiwan, actually. I came here when I was 12 years old. And during junior high school, I always had, people teasing me, being Asian. I was actually the only Asian in my school. And I always feel like I sort of had this identity kind of problem in terms of, why am I different and all that. And as I grow up, I realize who I am, and I have more, confidence in terms of who I am. So I'm proud to be Asian. But I wanted to make the first film, The Race Epidemic, is more for the next generation, because I know a lot of the next generation, they're growing up, they're going through what I'm going through. So I wanted them to know that, hey, you got to be proud, you got to know who you are. And this is America. It's supposed to embrace that difference, and nobody ever taught us that in school. So that's when I wanted to start to make a film about. Actually, we started the race epidemic. We started the idea in 2019, before the pandemic. We wanted to do a film about bias against Asian, and as we were actually filming, it's funny because we didn't get any sort of that much support at the time, because people, even from the Asians, because that time, if you remember, Crazy Rich Asians was in the movie theater, and everybody thought Asian was the favorite. So people were saying, well, that's just what you're trying to make is, not relevant, actually. But then the pandemic hits, and people were actually shocked how America actually really treats sort of like, Asian as sort of like these virus carrier, and how fast things turned. And that's when we actually got a lot of support in terms of financial wise, because we couldn't make the film, So a lot of people supported us, and then we were actually able to make the movie. So it is important to make these kind of movie that keep the media out there to understand that there are these things happening. And it's funny because after our first film, and then as we were making this film, last year we were watching this film, I was thinking, okay, well, it's great, but there's so many other things going on that maybe people don't really care about Asian American issues. But, this year when I'm watching it, all the issues in terms of immigration, high tech, chips, everything with what's happening right now, it seems like, wow, this is kind of more relevant than ever right now, actually. So you never know.
Thank you, Tony. A little bit about me, and I used to work in a high-tech company. We do system on chips. I was laid off, so my husband encouraged me, and why don't you pursue your dream? And I always love media, so actually I started working in the media in the radio station as a radio host. Had my morning show, Good Morning Silicon Valley. And later I became a TV host, had my nightly TV show. I was raised in a traditional Chinese family with 3 sisters, and my mom was very strict, very dominant mom. So we were not allowed to tell our own stories when we were young. Because mom always said, you need to stay low key, stay modest. When you're successful, you're not supposed to tell the others. When you're in the bad shape, you need to hide yourself. And you're not supposed to talk while you're eating. So during the lunch or during the dinner, when I try to talk something, my mom would, chop me on my head with a chopstick and say, "Shut up." So that's how we're raised, not to tell our stories. But when I'm here and I always admire those American friends. They can freely tell their stories. Good or bad, they can share with others. I really love this sharing spirit. So I'm trying to, not only myself, I'm trying to encourage more people to come out and tell our Asian American stories. I think it's really important because if you don't tell, and people don't know who you are, they don't know what you stand for, they don't know what's your culture. They probably have misunderstanding. You don't know. So why don't you open your heart, just share with people, and you can share anything. So that's why we started Asian American Stories video contest. We've been doing that for 2 years and quite successful. All Asians, Indian, Korean, Vietnamese, Filipino, Mongolian, Japanese, all together we're telling our stories because we are all Asian, but we don't know each other. Even though we say, oh, we are all Asian, but we don't really know the culture of each other. So it's really important that we come in together and share our stories. And by sharing story, we found a common ground. And also we found this, I would say, belonging. This is really important for me. By telling the story, sharing the story, I found the belongings.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing so far and for making this film. I think one question I had is piggybacking on actually what you were just saying, because I wanted to go there. When I think about kind of the state of Asian Americans in business today and technology, like I see a certain amount of success. I see a certain amount of people who cover like the Jensen Huangs of the world, and he gets great press coverage for a short article. And they comment on his leather jacket and his weird way of doing one-on-ones, which he doesn't do, and how unique he is. But there's not a ton of inspiration that comes, like in terms of things that we can apply to ourselves. And when I think about us as a group, I do think we're not always the best storytellers. And so, are there things that you've noticed or ways that you could help us figure out like how to create stories that are more compelling? You've done a lot of these video contests now. You've done 2 documentaries. What are the things that could make us better storytellers, just in our personal lives or in our corporate careers? How do we get better at it? Are there just a couple takeaways that you can give us to pick up on? Because obviously none of us, well, maybe not none of us, but many of us are not going to be in your shoes where we get to produce films, where we're going to have captive audiences for an hour and a half, and have compelling background tracks. But what are the things that you've noticed seem to resonate well with people? What are the things that we could at least take away for the now in our climate? Because I do feel like storytelling is going to be one of the things that hopefully sets us apart in this climate. And because when I think about 2020 and Stop Asian Hate, there was a huge movement. There was cross collaboration between Hollywood, business, a bunch of lawyers, some of us who are here in this room right now, and it kind of died down, and it just became more headlines. So how do we get the stories out?
Oh, that's a great question. The question is, how do we get the story out? Well, being able to tell a story, you kind of have to be motivated to tell a story. Whether it's you feel like injustice has been, you've been treated unjust, or something that happened to you that you have this sort of motivation to tell the story. I think one of the things with Asian culture, a lot of time before we were making this film, before I made the race epidemic, I actually, many Asians thought they were doing good, they were doing fine. They don't need to go out and tell these stories. They just feel like, well, I'm kind of doing my own thing. And that sort of is ingrained in the Asian culture because we've been, like Diana said, we've been raised, kind of keep your head down, just work hard, don't complain, just do your thing and you'll be fine, take care of your own family, whatever. But, you can't just do that, especially right now, So you gotta have that kind of motivation. But second of all, I think actually this is the best time to tell story. And I tell you why, because I studied film in school, and then when I graduated, I couldn't get any chance to make movies or because the kind of movie Hollywood wanted to tell is white people's story, and the kind of story I wrote was about Asians. And at the time, that was like 20 years ago, I had producers who told me, well, people don't want to see all Asian people on screen. That's Hollywood. And this is way before Crazy Rich Asian. But still, things has improved a lot. But I think right now is the best time to tell story. And I tell you why, because you have to get through a lot of gatekeepers at least in America to try to tell stories. You have to go through Hollywood, all these. But right now, there's a thing called AI generative, videos, and it's improving so much that a lot of people can tell stories, or a lot of people become storytellers that they normally would not be able to have the chance to tell stories, because for us to make films, we need to find a crew, like 15 people, and then we need to find actors, we need to find money, we need to find all these things. And a lot of people don't have that access. But with the new AI, you can have one person wanting to tell your story, and you can start telling your story, actually. And you don't have to have millions of dollars to do that. But again, just because, and I tell people this, just because you have a brush doesn't mean you can start painting really good paintings. You have to have something to say, and you have to have that urge to do something about it. And that's the thing, I think, when we were making film in 2019, a lot of the agents says, well, that's not gonna happen to us. We were talking about the concentration camp, and people would say, well, that's like 50 years ago. Why are you bringing this up right now? Well, COVID hit, and look what happened, And again, right now, even if you look at what's going on right now, people are saying, well, they're deporting, illegal Mexicans or whoever. How do you know they're not going to start deporting Asians? So, you think that's not going to happen to you. It might. I don't know, but you gotta kind of be vigilant about it and tell these kind of story, at least if something happened to you. And that's what happened during the COVID. Like, people who usually wouldn't support us, things start to happen to them, like a younger generation. A lot of the young generation, they grew up in the Obama era, they just thought like, well, that's how it's always gonna be. Especially Asians, they were doing really well. And then when the COVID hit, they were getting called names and having discrimination happen to them. Then they realized, oh, we got to do something about it. Then they march, So that's you got to be motivated to tell that kind of story.
Yeah, I want to add this. He said you're going to be motivated to tell story. I would say, when opportunity comes, don't refuse. You will have many opportunities. For example, when we call for Asian American Stories video contest, just to create a 1-minute video, write down this website, www.aastories.org. aastories.org. And if you visit the website, you will see so many stories told by the amateurs. The youngest is 9 years old. The oldest is 102. And some of them, don't even speak good English, but they can. It's easy just to create a story of yourself. Tell any story, your family, your friends, your parents. Opportunity is there. Just all you need to do is take action. And also, whenever we are at work or when we with our friends, and whenever we got opportunities, and just step up and tell your stories. So my suggestion is, you need this practice. You practice more, and you become better and better telling your stories. When there is opportunity, don't refuse that. That's my suggestion. Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, thank you all for coming, and thank you, Diana, and thanks again for Freshfields for hosting this wonderful event. We hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.